This game between Viswanathan Anand and Maxime Vakir-Lagravi was a fascinating strategic battle that showcased both players' deep understanding of chess. The early phase of this top board game between the two icon players saw the players traveling along different openings. While MVL didn't mind a Najdorf, Anand seemed to suggest that you can answer it in Italian style 3. Bishop c4, and then several moves later it really looked like a Breyer-Lopez. Anand didn't react in the strongest possible way to a pawn sacrifice, and, after missing a small tactic, he was quickly in trouble.
e4.
Anand starts with the classic king's pawn opening, aiming for an open game and quick development.
c5.
MVL responds with the Sicilian defense, known for its sharp and complex positions. This opening choice signals MVL's intent to fight for the initiative from the very beginning.
Knight f3.
Anand develops his knight, preparing for an open Sicilian. This move also controls the important e5 square.
d6.
MVL sets up a flexible pawn structure, typical of the Sicilian. This move supports the c5 pawn and prepares for e6 or e5 in the future.
Bishop c4.
An interesting choice by Anand, deviating from the main lines of the open Sicilian. This move is known as the Sozin attack, aiming to put pressure on the f7 square.
Knight f6.
MVL develops his knight, challenging white's center and preparing to castle kingside. This move also indirectly defends the f7 square.
d3.
Anand opts for a more closed position, supporting his e4 pawn. This setup is less committal than the sharp lines of the open Sicilian.
a6.
MVL prepares to expand on the queenside with b5, a typical plan in many Sicilian structures.
c3.
Anand strengthens his center and prepares for a potential d4 push. This solid setup aims for a slower, more positional game.
b5.
MVL continues his queenside expansion, pushing Anand's bishop back and gaining space.
Bishop b3.
Anand retreats his bishop, maintaining the pressure on the f7 square while avoiding exchanges.
e6.
MVL solidifies his center and prepares to develop his light-squared bishop. This move also further secures the d5 square.
Short castle.
Anand castles, securing his king and connecting his rooks. This is a standard development move in many openings.
Bishop b7.
MVL develops his bishop to a strong diagonal, putting pressure on white's center and kingside.
Rook e1.
Anand prepares for a potential e5 push, increasing the pressure in the center.
Bishop e7.
MVL completes his kingside development, preparing to castle and solidifying his position.
Knight bd2.
Anand develops his second knight, supporting the e4 pawn and preparing for potential kingside play.
Knight bd7.
MVL brings out his other knight, completing his development and supporting the c5 and e5 squares.
d4.
Anand challenges in the center, trying to open up the position and take advantage of his lead in development.
Short castle.
MVL castles, completing his development and securing his king. Now both sides are fully developed and the middle game struggle begins.
Bishop c2.
Anand repositions his bishop, possibly preparing for a kingside attack with moves like knight h4 or f4 in the future.
Queen c7.
MVL centralizes his queen and supports a potential e5 push. This move also eyes the c4 square for a possible knight c4 in the future.
Knight f1.
An interesting maneuver by Anand, possibly preparing knight g3. This knight could support a kingside attack or move to e3 to control the d5 square.
Rook fc8.
MVL activates his rook on the c-file, preparing for potential queenside play and putting pressure on the c3 pawn.
Bishop d3.
Anand repositions his bishop again, controlling the important e4 square and preparing for potential kingside play.
e5.
MVL strikes in the center, challenging white's structure. This move fights for control of the d4 square and opens lines for his pieces.
d5.
Anand closes the center, preventing black from gaining too much central control. This move also creates a potential outpost on c4 for white's pieces.
c4.
MVL locks down the queenside, restricting white's pieces and gaining space. This move also eyes the b3 square for a potential knight outpost.
Bishop c2.
Anand retreats his bishop, avoiding the exchange and maintaining flexibility.
Knight c5.
MVL repositions his knight to a strong outpost, putting pressure on white's position and eyeing the weak b3 square.
Knight g3.
Anand brings his knight to an aggressive square, eyeing both e4 and f5. This move supports potential kingside play.
Rook cb8.
MVL prepares for further queenside play, possibly aiming for b4 to break open the position.
b4.
Anand challenges black's knight, trying to disrupt black's queenside play.
c takes b3.
MVL captures, opening the c-file. This exchange favors black as it opens lines for his pieces.
a takes b3.
Anand recaptures, maintaining control of the f-file.
Bishop c8.
MVL repositions his bishop, eyeing the a6 square and preparing for potential bishop a6 to increase pressure on white's position.
h3.
Anand prevents any knight g4 ideas, securing his kingside. This move also provides a luft for his king, preventing any back rank mates.
a5.
MVL continues his queenside pressure, aiming to open lines and create weaknesses in white's position.
Bishop d2.
Anand develops his bishop, preparing to contest the open files.
Bishop d7.
MVL improves his bishop's position, eyeing the b5 square and supporting his queenside play.
Queen e2.
Anand centralizes his queen, supporting the e4 pawn and preparing for potential kingside action.
g6.
MVL strengthens his kingside, preventing any immediate attacking ideas from white and preparing for potential f5 push.
Rook a3.
Anand prepares to double rooks on the f-file, increasing pressure on black's queenside.
Bishop d8.
MVL repositions his bishop, possibly eyeing b6 to support his queenside play or simply moving it to a safer square.
Rook ea1.
Anand doubles rooks on the f-file, maximizing his pressure on black's queenside.
Queen c8.
MVL moves his queen, supporting the a5 pawn and preparing to resist white's pressure on the a-file.
B4.
Anand challenges on the queen side, trying to open lines and create weaknesses in black's position.
Knight A4.
A pawn sacrifice by MVL that isn't fully correct? This move aims to complicate the position and create counterplay, but it gives white an opportunity.
Bishop D3.
Anand gaining a pawn, but allowing black some tactical opportunities.
Knight B2.
MVL creates a fork on white's rook and bishop, trying to regain the lost material.
B takes A5.
Anand captures the pawn, ignoring the fork for now.
Knight takes D3.
MVL captures the bishop, regaining some material and opening lines for his pieces.
Queen takes D3.
Anand recaptures, maintaining material equality but with a more exposed position.
Rook A6.
MVL activates his rook, preparing to contest the open a-file.
Bishop G5.
Anand increases pressure on black's position, pinning the knight and threatening to win material.
Rook BA8.
MVL doubles rooks on the a-file, maximizing his counterplay and putting pressure on white's position.
Knight D2.
A mistake by Anand, releasing the pin on black's knight and allowing a strong tactical shot.
Knight takes D5.
MVL capitalizes with a strong fork, threatening both the queen and the e4 pawn.
E takes D5.
Anand is forced to give up material, choosing to maintain his pawn structure.
Bishop takes G5.
MVL captures, gaining the exchange and a significant advantage.
Knight Ge4.
Anand tries to activate his knights, creating some threats against black's king.
Bishop D8.
MVL retreats his bishop to a safe square, consolidating his material advantage.
Knight B3.
Anand brings his knight to an active square, trying to create some counterplay.
Queen C4.
MVL applies pressure with his queen, threatening to win more material.
Queen F3.
Anand activates his queen, defending against black's threats and creating some of his own.
King G7.
MVL improves his king's position, moving it to a safer square and preparing for the endgame.
Knight ED2.
Anand regroups his knights, trying to create a solid defensive setup.
Queen H4.
MVL's queen becomes more active, creating threats against white's king and putting pressure on the H3 pawn.
Queen E2.
Anand defends, trying to force a queen exchange to relieve some pressure.
Rook C8.
MVL activates his rook on the c-file, maintaining the pressure and preparing for the endgame.
Knight C1.
Anand regroups, trying to find better squares for his pieces.
Rook CA8.
MVL doubles rooks on the a-file, maximizing his pressure and preparing to win more material.
Knight CB3.
Anand defends, trying to hold his position together.
H5.
MVL secures his kingside and prepares for potential attacking ideas. This move also prevents any NG5 ideas from white.
c4.
Anand tries to create counterplay, opening lines for his pieces.
B takes c4.
MVL captures, further weakening white's position and creating a passed pawn.
Queen takes c4.
Anand recaptures, trying to stay in the game.
Queen takes c4.
MVL exchanges queens, simplifying into a favorable endgame where his material advantage should be decisive.
Knight takes c4.
Anand recaptures, entering a difficult endgame.
Rook b8.
MVL activates his rook, preparing to push his passed b-pawn.
Knight bd2.
MVL activates his rook.
Rook b5.
MVL's rook becomes more active, threatening to invade white's position.
Rook b3.
Anand tries to create play on the b-file.
Rook takes d5.
MVL captures a pawn, increasing his material advantage and simplifying the position further.
Rook b8.
Anand's last attempt at counterplay, threatening black's bishop.
Bishop takes a5.
MVL captures another pawn, ignoring the threat to his bishop as the material advantage is now overwhelming.
Knight e4.
Anand activates his knight, trying to create some threats.
Bishop c7.
MVL's bishop retreats to a safe square, maintaining control of the long diagonal.
Rook takes a6.
Anand captures, trying to create some counterplay.
Bishop takes b8.
MVL recaptures, maintaining his material advantage and simplifying the position further.
Knight c takes d6.
Anand's knights become more active, creating some threats against black's king.
f5.
MVL pushes his pawn, challenging the knights and creating a passed pawn on the king side.
Rook b6.
Anand activates his rook, trying to create some last-minute threats.
F takes e4.
MVL creates a passed pawn, which will be decisive in the endgame.
Knight takes e4.
Anand captures, but his position is hopeless.
Rook b5.
MVL's rook becomes more active, and white's position is completely lost. The passed e-pawn, combined with black's material advantage, leaves white with no chance. Anand resigns. MVL's material advantage, better piece coordination, and passed pawns prove decisive. A well-played game by MVL, capitalizing on every opportunity and converting his advantage flawlessly. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe.